The night Nadia Voss asked me why I was so easy to talk to, I didn't have a good answer. I had spent 2 years finding her impossible. I had written her off as sharp and closed and unwilling to lose at anything, including conversations. And then she was sitting across from me at 11:30 on a Tuesday, her laptop open between us, her resume on the screen, and she was looking at me like I had just said something she hadn't been expecting from the person she thought I was. I should have kept my mouth shut. I should have made a joke and let the moment pass. That is what the version of me from 2 years ago would have done. The version who had never sat across from Nadia Voss in a near-empty office building and watched her try not to say something true. I didn't let it pass. That was the problem. Or possibly the best decision I have ever made, depending on who is telling the story. My name is Daniel Reeves. I'm 34. I run operations logistics for a mid-size commercial interiors firm, the kind of work that involves a great deal of spreadsheet maintenance, vendor arguments, and standing in rooms that smell like new carpet samples. It is not glamorous. It pays well enough that I stopped pretending I was going to do something else with my life. I have a one-bedroom apartment, a coffee habit that my doctor describes as a relationship, and a sister who texts me every 2 weeks to ask if I am seeing anyone. I tell her I am busy. She sends me a thumbs down. Nadia had been at the firm for 2 years by the time any of this happened. She came in as a senior account manager and immediately began winning things. Accounts, quarterly reviews, arguments about procurement timelines that nobody had ever thought to have before she arrived. She wore her dark hair pulled back in a way that looked accidental, but probably wasn't, and she carried a flat gray notebook that she opened and closed with a precision that suggested she had opinions about the structural integrity of paper. We met at a department onboarding session on her 3rd day, when she corrected something I said about vendor lead times in front of 12 people and a vice president. She was right. I did not find this endearing. We had been professionally courteous enemies ever since. The kind of courteous that means you say each other's names in meetings with exactly the right amount of neutrality. The kind of enemies that means you know exactly how the other person takes their coffee and have never once offered to get it. The notebook was her thing. It went everywhere. I had seen her write in it during calls, during lunch, during what appeared to be a fire drill. I had once caught her writing in it while standing in the elevator, and she had looked up, seen me looking, and closed it with a snap that communicated several things, none of them welcoming. I told myself she was just ambitious. I told myself the friction between us was professional, a disagreement about methods, not people. I told myself a lot of things, for a long time, that I was starting to suspect were extremely creative fiction. It started with the email. A Tuesday evening, 6:40, most of the office already gone. The subject line read, "Quick question, no rush." I had learned that "no rush" from Nadia meant she had already decided this was urgent and was giving me the opportunity to treat it that way. The email said, "I'm updating my resume. Would you be willing to look at it? You write well. I've noticed." I read it 3 times. I noticed 2 things. First, that she had paid attention to my writing. Second, that she had chosen to tell me this in an email she had almost certainly drafted more than once before sending. I wrote back, "Sure, bring it by." She appeared at my desk 12 minutes later, which meant she had been waiting for my reply before she left. She set her laptop on the corner of my desk without asking if that was all right, angled the screen toward me, and sat down in the chair I kept beside it for exactly no reason I had ever been able to articulate. I looked at the document. She watched me look. "It's fine," I said, after a moment. "I know it's fine," she said. "I need it to be better than fine." That was the most Nadia thing she had ever said to me. I almost laughed. I didn't. I pulled the laptop closer. We worked for an hour. She had written her experience in the language of someone who had learned to make themselves sound smaller than they were. Passive constructions, hedged verbs, job titles that didn't reflect what she'd actually done. I took a sentence that said, "assisted with client account management," and changed it to, "drove client retention across 14 accounts, reducing churn by 22%. She read it, said nothing for a moment. "I did drive that," she said finally. "I know. I was there for the Q3 review." Another pause. Why did you remember that? I blamed the coffee. It was plausible. She accepted it. We kept going. I asked her questions. What had she actually built? What had she changed? What would stop working the day she left? She answered in the clipped, efficient way she answered everything. But somewhere in the second half hour, something loosened slightly. She stopped editing her answers before she gave them. She started a sentence with, honestly, and didn't seem to notice that she'd said it. At some point, I got up to get water. I asked if she wanted some. She said yes, and when I came back, she had turned her chair slightly so she was facing more of the room and less of the screen, and the notebook was on her knee, open, and she was writing something in it. She closed it when I sat down, but not with the snap. Slowly, like she had simply finished a thought. At 11:15, she said, "I think that's enough. This is really good, Daniel." She used my name. She did not use my name, typically, in one-on-one conversation. She used it in meetings when she was making a point, and in emails when the email had more than 3 recipients. Not like this. Not quietly, at the end of a sentence that hadn't required it. I said, "It's a strong resume. You should be proud of it." She looked at the screen. "I'm not good at that." Being proud of things? Letting people see the things I'm proud of. She said it matter-of-factly, the way she said most things, but her thumb ran once along the edge of the notebook. It's a useful skill. I haven't developed it. Something in my chest shifted. Not dramatically, just enough. I said, "You're doing all right now." She looked up from the screen, held my gaze for 1 second longer than felt safe. Then she looked away. "Yeah," she said. Yeah. That was when she asked it. "Why are you so easy to talk to?" She said it the way she said most things she hadn't planned to say. Quickly, then immediately still, as if she could make the sentence feel more considered by not reacting to it. "I've been trying to figure it out. It's been bothering me." I have poor survival instincts around women who say things like, "It's been bothering me," with their notebooks closed on their knees at 11:30 at night. "I didn't know I was," I said. "You are." A pause. "It's inconvenient." "For whom?" She didn't answer that. She looked at the screen again. Then she said carefully, "I thought you were one kind of person. You're not." "What kind did you think I was?" "Someone I could keep at arm's length without it costing anything." She said it slowly, like she was reading something she had written a long time ago and was only now sure was accurate. "It turns out it has been costing something. I've just been pretending it wasn't." The room was quiet. Somewhere on another floor, a heating vent clicked. I should have said something measured, something that gave her a way out, an easy redirect, a joke about vendor timelines and the natural limitations of professional relationships. That version of me had a script. I knew where every line went. Instead, I said, "How long?" She looked at me. "How long what? How long has it been costing something?" The question sat there. She let it. "Since the fire drill," she said finally. "You held the door. You didn't make a thing of it. You just held it." She looked at the notebook. "That was 8 months ago." 8 months. I had held a door 8 months ago, and Nadia Voss had been carrying it around like a weight she couldn't put down. I did not say, "I noticed you first." I did not say, "The fire drill was not the beginning for me either." I said something I meant more than either of those things. "You don't have to keep carrying it by yourself." She went still. Not dramatically, just still. Her fingers tightened once around the notebook, and then, slowly, she set it down on the desk beside the laptop, like she was setting something down on purpose. "I know that," she said. "I'm just not very experienced at not carrying things." "I know. That doesn't bother you?" "No." She looked at me. "Why not?" "Because you're here," I said, "at 11:30, asking me why you can talk to me. That's not someone who doesn't know how to put things down. That's someone who just did." A long pause. Something crossed her face that I didn't have a word for. The thing that happens when someone hears a thing they have been quietly hoping to hear, and it lands more accurately than they had prepared for. Daniel. She said my name again, quietly, like a question that didn't need punctuation. Yeah. I don't want to leave yet, I said. Then don't. She laughed, once, soft, almost to herself. And the laugh came out wrong in the best possible way, like something that had been held behind a door for a long time and had finally decided to come through it. We talked until past midnight. Not about the resume. About her sister in Vancouver, who called every Sunday and always asked the same 3 questions. About the year I spent trying to learn Portuguese and gave up after discovering I had been mispronouncing the word for sorry the entire time. About the way the office looked different at night. Quieter, like it was being itself for once. She got the notebook back out at some point, and I didn't ask what she was writing. She didn't close it when I looked over. When she finally stood to leave, she gathered the laptop and the notebook and her bag, and then she paused at the edge of my desk. The resume, she said. I should tell you, I'm not actually looking for another job. I stared at her. You spent 2 hours. I needed an excuse. She said it without embarrassment, which somehow made it worse and also entirely wonderful. The email was the easiest one I could think of that you would say yes to. She picked up her bag. Good night, Daniel. She was 3 steps away when I said her name. She stopped, turned. Same time Thursday? I said. We should probably proofread it again. She looked at me for a moment. Then she smiled. A real one, unguarded, the kind that changed the whole architecture of her face. And she said, I'll bring the notebook. She did. 3 months later, she stopped saving the notebook for when I wasn't looking. She wrote in it on my couch on Sunday mornings with my terrible coffee going cold on the table beside her, and she would look up occasionally and read me something she'd written, and I would give her an opinion, and she would disagree, and then usually concede, with an expression that suggested conceding was something she was still actively practicing. 8 months after that, her sister came to visit from Vancouver. They sat at my kitchen table for 3 hours, and at some point her sister said, in a voice meant to carry, He's better than any of the ones you described before. Nadia looked at her with a precision that could have cut glass. Her sister smiled and ate another piece of toast. Years later, when people ask how we met, she tells them we were rivals. I tell them we were colleagues who got there slowly. Both of these are true. The version I tell at parties involves the resume, because I like watching her face when I get to that part. She still has the notebook. Different one now. The original filled up somewhere around month 4. But she writes in it the same way, with the same deliberate handwriting, and she still closes it when she's finished a thought, rather than when she wants to keep someone out. She still hasn't sent the resume anywhere. I find that, every time I think about it, to be the most Nadia thing she has ever done. What would you have done if your work rival asked you for help, and it turned out the help was just an excuse to finally talk to you? And have you ever felt the moment a person you'd kept at arm's length suddenly costs too much to keep there? Tell me your story in the comments. If you liked this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.